Why did the government not act on Abramovich's ownership of Chelsea when the 2019 Home Office report came out, which amongst other things showed links to the Russian state and his public association with corrupt activity in other places?
Yeah, and again, I'm afraid you'll be aware that the sanctions are led by FCDO, and as I wrote to the committee with respect, I cannot comment in detail about the sanctions and the particular details of the sanctions decisions.
Sanctions. This is actually about why the government didn't act on something.
Well, you're asking me why we didn't
known
sanction
before.
him earlier, and that is actually a decision for another government department, which I do not control. So I say, with respect, I can't really comment on that. I think in terms of what's changed, well, to state the obvious, the invasion of Ukraine has fundamentally changed things, which is why the world is responding and reacting by adding lots more people to the sanctions regime, and effort and energy is being put into investigating individuals that were perhaps not on the radar previously.
It hasn't. Well, I think to say that Abramovich wouldn't have been on the radar is perhaps not.
No, I didn't say he wasn't on.
My question was about
but Ms Elliott, as I said, I did write to the committee with respect, saying that I could not go into detail on this. And you're also asking me a question that's relevant to another minister. With respect, I suggest you ask another minister.
On other Premier League owners?
Well, again, because the sanctions are decided on by FCDO, then I literally cannot comment further on this.
So, are you aware of any of the similar reports?
Again, Ms Elliott, I cannot comment.
But it's not about it. This is not about what the FCDO have done. This is about, are you aware, as a minister in this government, of any of the similar reports on Premier League owners, or are you not aware? That's a very straightforward question.
Look, Ms Elliott, I did, with respect, write to the committee laying out that I cannot answer questions relating to particular sanctions.
I'm asking are what your letter was about.
The letter was quite straightforward. It's that I'm not responsible for sanctions, and therefore asking me questions about sanctions is the responsibility of another government minister. I am aware, of course, of there being questions, as we've raised, as we discussed earlier on this, about ownership of sporting entities that have been raised, have been around for quite a while, and in response to that, hopefully I gave you some assurance that we're aware of those concerns and therefore take them seriously and will be looking at elements of that in response to the fan-led review as it relates to the owners and directors test. I'm afraid I can't really be drawn much more on this, and sorry to be uncooperative in this area.
So what has DCMS made any assessment about Abramovich's influence on Britain through Chelsea Football Club?
Again, you're asking me questions as it relates to the sanctions regime.
No,
that
I've
I
not
can't
mentioned
really.
Sanctions. You keep mentioning sanctions. I have not mentioned sanctions. I asked a question about the department you were a minister in made any assessment of Abramovich's influence on Britain through his ownership of Chelsea Football Club. That has nothing to do with sanctions.
It depends what you mean as an influence on Britain. As an owner of a major Premier League club, clearly he has had some influence, both directly on Chelsea and more broadly. I think it's self-evident that he's had some impact. In terms of what that assessment is, what I can say is, given the context of the despicable invasion of Ukraine and therefore the links that Abramovich has to that regime, in response to that, we have sanctioned him and his assets are frozen. That speaks for itself, I think, that shows that that level of investment and engagement is unacceptable, and we have therefore sanctioned him. And I don't think I can say much more.
Can I just ask you finally about someone else? Alicia Usmanov. Have you any concerns about the previous involvement of that gentleman in English football?
Sorry, I missed that.
Alicia Usmanov. Have you any concerns about that gentleman's involvement in English football?
Well, and again, if it relates to...
It's not related to Minister, with respect, I completely get why you wish to not discuss specific sanctions. I think what Julia and other members of the committee are really trying to get at is basically, has the government been asleep on the watch while effectively the Premier League has been used for the purposes of sports washing and potential money laundering? So that really is ultimately the question that we're asking.
So as it relates to Ismailov, I understand that, and I think the Everton and the sponsorship relationships have been discontinued as a response. He has been sanctioned, and I understand that that Everton have suspended, if not completely broken, the sponsorship relationship there. So in terms of appropriateness of doing that, they've obviously done the right thing.
But did you have concerns about the gentleman?
Look,
I'm not asking you about sanctions. I can
say, look, it's really important.
Ringing?
When I was on this committee as well, these issues came up again and again and again. You're absolutely right here in terms of it's an area that is needed in terms of investment and who owns our sports. It is something that we did need to look at. And we have, that's one of the purposes of the fan-led review, and one of the elements is who owns our sporting entities and how they're assessed, and the owners and directors element of that. Precisely why, partly why we've had the review is to look at these issues of governance. They've been long-standing, and we are going to be responding shortly to it. So I completely understand the concerns, and actually I think it's perfectly fine and reasonable to question, including on behalf of our constituents and sports fans, about who owns what. Sports fans across the country tend to be quite vocal about who owns their clubs, and as I said, I get it from an ethical and a point of view as well. People do express and have expressed concerns.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.